interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
Bill Maher recently delivered some of his sharpest criticism toward Whoopi Goldberg, creating a moment that quickly drew attention. After years of public disagreements on a variety of issues, Maher argued that he no longer felt the need to soften his response. Rather than easing into the subject, he addressed the disagreement directly, making the exchange one of the most talked about political media moments. Before diving further into the discussion, remember to subscribe for more short commentary videos featuring detailed breakdowns of today's biggest political and cultural debates.
Being woke is like a magic moral time machine where you judge everybody against what you imagine you would have done in 1066, and you always win.
According to Maher, the exchange reflected what he sees as broader problems with modern political discourse. He has argued that too many conversations become centered on identity, assumptions about history, and assigning moral authority based on group affiliation rather than debating ideas themselves. Critics who agree with Maher believe this style of discussion has become increasingly common on daytime television, with The View frequently serving as one example in those debates. Maher has also argued that imagining how people might have behaved centuries ago is less important than addressing today's challenges honestly. In his view, political discussions become less productive when they focus more on symbolic performances than on practical disagreements. That perspective has become a recurring theme throughout many of his recent commentaries. Maher also pointed to the history of his public disagreements with Whoopi Goldberg.
And the capacity for cruelty is a human thing, not a white thing. That's the truth, even though it doesn't jibe with the current narrative. But in today's world, when truth conflicts with narrative, it's the truth that has to apologize. Being woke is like a magic moral time machine where you judge everybody against what you imagine you would have done in 1066, and you always win. But plenty of liberals also want to history to control the present. And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized the phenomenon known as presentism, which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present. It's the belief that people who lived 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago really should have known better.
Over the years, the two have openly differed on issues including COVID-19, political correctness, and what Maher describes as modern wokeness. From his perspective, those repeated disagreements made a direct response appropriate. Supporters argue that Maher's willingness to openly challenge people who generally share many of his broader political views is one reason he continues attracting audiences from across the political spectrum. Whether people agree with his conclusions or not, his willingness to voice them remains a defining part of his public style. Bill Maher then argued that even the title of The View no longer reflects what the program was originally intended to represent. The show was created to feature different opinions, different personalities, and genuine debate from multiple perspectives. Critics, however, argue that it has gradually evolved into a format where one dominant viewpoint often sets the tone, while dissenting voices receive far less room to influence the discussion.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Mm-hmm. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it.
According to Maher, that shift represents a broader problem within modern political debate. He has suggested that there was once greater space for open disagreement, while today, some discussions appear to allow less tolerance for opinions that fall outside the prevailing consensus. Supporters of Maher's view argue that healthy debate depends on the willingness to hear opposing arguments rather than discouraging them. That criticism has become one of his most consistent themes in recent years. The conversation intensified when attention turned to comments comparing life in the United States with life in Iran. During the discussion, Alyssa Farah Griffin pointed to documented reports about conditions in Iran, including the enforcement of mandatory hijab laws and the actions of the country's morality police.
Whoopi said I was flippant and immoral for saying it's time to chuck the masks and get back to normal. Well, are 43 states here in America and the entire nations of England, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland flippant because they're saying the same thing now? COVID is so much more complicated than just, I'm for more safety than you are, and therefore I'm a better person. But Whoopi is misinformed on many aspects of the COVID debate. After she got it recently, she said that being vaccinated, quote, doesn't stop Omicron, and that's the problem with the variant because it gets stronger. Actually, it usually gets weaker, as is the case with this one. But that's okay. She's allowed to be wrong.
Also referenced the widely reported death of Mahsa Amini in 2022 following her detention, an event that drew international attention and widespread protests. Critics of the comparison argued that equating life in the United States with the experiences of women living under Iran's legal system overlooks significant differences in political freedoms, legal rights, and everyday life. They viewed the comparison as inaccurate and unnecessarily provocative, while supporters of the original remarks interpreted them differently. The exchange quickly became one of the most discussed moments from the program, fueling widespread debate across television and social media.
I want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before. Sure. So everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis.
Yeah. According to critics of Whoopi Goldberg's remarks, the statement, "There's no way I can make you understand," became one of the defining moments of the exchange. They argue that when a discussion shifts away from evidence and toward personal conviction alone, productive debate becomes much more difficult. Bill Maher has repeatedly argued that disagreements should be addressed with facts and reasoning, rather than assumptions about the motives or understanding of those on the other side. The debate expanded further after comments from Dr. Sheila Nazarian, an Iranian-American physician, who publicly criticized comparisons between life in the United States and conditions under the Iranian government. Drawing on her family's experiences, she argued that such comparisons minimized the hardships faced by people who have lived under genuine political repression. Those remarks added another perspective to an already intense public discussion and received significant attention across media platforms. Maher also argued that this reflected a broader pattern he believes has appeared in some public debates. He has criticized situations where controversial statements remain uncorrected, while those raising objections become the focus of the conversation instead. During discussions about COVID-19, Maher frequently challenged official messaging, and later argued that public conversations should place greater emphasis on scientific evidence and open debate. Supporters of that view believe accuracy should always take priority over confidence or certainty when addressing millions of viewers. The conversation also turned to Whoopi Goldberg's comments about modern wokeness and her career. Critics pointed out that Goldberg has enjoyed decades of success in entertainment and television, including a long tenure on The View. They argued that her professional achievements demonstrate the influence and platform she already possesses, raising questions about continued narratives centered on being outside established institutions. According to Maher, this illustrates what he sees as a broader political trend in which successful public figures continue presenting themselves primarily as outsiders, despite holding prominent positions of influence. Whether people agree with that assessment or not, the exchange became another example of the larger debate over identity, privilege, and political messaging that continues shaping discussions in American media and public life.
I'm sorry,
they
nothing
used
compared
to just
to United
keep hanging people.
It is not even the same. I couldn't step foot during this.
Wait. That's not what you mean to say. It is the same.
No, it's not. The year 2025 in the United States is nothing like if I step foot wearing this outfit in Toronto.
I'm sorry.
What, they look like
listen,
no, I can't have my hair showing. I can't wear a skirt. I can't have my arms out.
I'm telling you, that's why I am saying that it is the same. Someone for their difference is not good, whoever does it.
Very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're
everybody.
Not if you're black.
Do not anyone at this table committed to
Let me tell you about being in this country. This is the greatest country in the world. But, yeah, I know that. But every day, we are worried. Do we have to be worried about our kids? Are our kids going to get shot because they're running through somebody's neighborhood? They are not big deals, and I don't mean to say they're not big deals to you, because that's not what I meant.
Bill Maher went on to argue that daytime television has increasingly turned political and cultural debates into its central focus. According to his criticism, familiar programs are sometimes reframed through modern political language, with older entertainment and cultural works being reinterpreted to fit today's social and political discussions. Critics who agree with Maher believe this approach can make conversations feel more ideological than entertaining. Maher also questioned whether too much attention is being devoted to symbolic cultural disputes, while many Americans remain focused on practical everyday challenges. He contrasted debates about television, movies, and historical interpretation with concerns such as the economy, housing costs, education, and family finances. Supporters of his view argue that those issues deserve greater attention because they have a more immediate impact on people's daily lives. Critics of modern political discourse have argued that this emphasis on cultural debates may contribute to growing frustration among some voters. Maher has suggested that concentrating heavily on symbolic controversies while giving less attention to practical concerns risks creating a disconnect between political messaging and the priorities many working families identify as most important. That concern has become a recurring theme throughout his recent commentary. Maher also discussed the concept of presentism, the idea of judging people from earlier periods entirely through today's social and cultural standards. Critics argue that this approach can oversimplify history by ignoring the context in which earlier generations lived and made decisions. According to Maher, understanding historical events requires acknowledging both past mistakes and historical circumstances rather than reducing every discussion to modern political labels alone. Bill Maher also criticized what he sees as the tendency to reinterpret historical figures primarily through the lens of today's political debates. Using Joan of Arc as an example, he argued that her legacy was defined by extraordinary leadership, courage, and the immense challenges she faced during her lifetime. According to Maher, reducing complex historical figures to modern cultural debates risks overlooking the larger historical significance of their achievements.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Mm-hmm. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because people couldn't get into colleges, because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted to make sure that this was a person's world.
Critics who share Maher's perspective argue that some discussions place too much emphasis on applying present-day social frameworks to people who lived in very different historical circumstances. They contend that understanding history requires acknowledging the realities of each era, rather than expecting historical figures to reflect today's political language or cultural expectations. Maher has also argued that open conversation is more valuable than attempts to silence opposing viewpoints. According to his view, political disagreements should be resolved through debate rather than personal attacks or efforts to exclude people from public discussion. He has repeatedly said that people can strongly disagree while still respecting one another and continuing the conversation. The discussion also referenced previous controversies involving Whoopi Goldberg, including public criticism over remarks she has continued to defend, as well as later debates surrounding comments about Iran and earlier discussions related to COVID-19. Throughout those controversies, Goldberg remained one of The View's most prominent hosts, continuing her long-running role on the program, while those debates generated widespread public attention. According to Bill Maher, the central issue is what happens when narrative begins taking priority over facts. He argued that public discussions become less productive when only part of the story is presented while important context is left out. Critics who agree with Maher believe that this pattern has become increasingly common in parts of television and political commentary, where reinforcing a preferred narrative sometimes appears more important than examining the full picture. Supporters of Maher's position argue that many viewers have grown frustrated with commentary that emphasizes emotional messaging over factual debate. They point to reactions from public figures across the media landscape, including criticism from Iranian activists and comments made by Fox News host Harris Faulkner regarding Whoopi Goldberg's comparison involving Iran. Those responses added even more attention to an already controversial discussion. The broader debate extends beyond one television segment or one public disagreement. It centers on questions about credibility, consistency, and whether political commentary should place greater emphasis on evidence rather than ideology. Maher has argued that honest debate requires acknowledging uncomfortable facts, even when they challenge widely held political narratives. That perspective has become one of the defining themes of his commentary over the years. What is the strongest argument in this debate? Did Bill Maher's criticism raise important points, or did Whoopi Goldberg make a stronger case? Share an opinion in the comments below. If this breakdown was enjoyable, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more discussions covering major political moments, media debates, and headline-making conversations.